Welcome, everybody, to the Learned Alpha Podcast. I'm Van.
I'm Derek.
And we'd like to welcome a longtime friend of mine, Mr. Bobby Dalgo.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself. What makes you you?
What makes me me? Lifelong resident, Ocean Springs. 12-year student, Greyhound. You too?
Yeah.
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 I don't know. Just having grown up in Ocean Springs, like when it used to be, it was really great. You know, it's kind of changing now, which is kind of...
It's completely different these days.
It is. A lot of it's better, some of it's not. So it's kind of a little different. But my parents, great parents, raised me well. I had two older brothers that were a lot older than me, so I basically was a only child.
Right.
You know?
I was in the same boat, 10 years different. So,
yeah, mine's 10
yeah. So when they moved out, I was pretty much by myself.
Yeah, at 8 years old, you're home. They're gone because they don't want nothing to do,
with home
growing
anymore.
up with. They're out 18. But so yeah, at 8 years old, you're almost like an only child again. And with older parents too, we both had older parents.
Yeah.
They had some practice under their belt by that point.
They did.
Were you a surprise
figured it all
like me? Were you a surprise?
I've asked my mom that. She says no.
Well, I
was shocked. I said, I thought I was a tumor or something. She said, nope.
I was a surprise. My brothers and sisters, my brother and sisters don't ever let me live this down. They were all like 9 years old, and my mom and dad decided they were going to go to the Florida Keys and rent a sailboat for 2 weeks.
No wonder.
Hey,
Right on.
and I was 77, so you know what kind of music was out there at that time. Yeah. And they were on a sailboat out in the middle of nowhere looking at stars for
Very
2
white.
weeks.
I imagine some Dr. Hook was playing or something.
Yeah.
Very white.
And so when they said, hey, by the way, my brother and sisters used to say, no, that's not the real story. We found you in a dumpster behind Winn-Dixie. So,
And the gypsies dropped you off.
yeah, I can relate to that, Bobby Dalgo.
Absolutely.
But your dad had Crown Dodge in Pascagoula for how many years?
45.
That's crazy.
How long we had it, yeah.
And I shared a picture not too long ago, and I always share it.
I love that picture.
My dad and his dad wearing like polyester pants,
Bell bottoms, white shoes,
with the white shoes and the white shirts unbuttoned about right here.
Chest hair out.
Yeah, oh yeah, gold chains. Yeah. Every time I see that memory, I share it just because it's so funny because I've known Bobby such a long time, and it's not funny. It's really cool that not only did our parents have a relationship, but he and I have a relationship.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
I think he sold so his dad was he was an alderman. My dad sold the police department their cars that year.
Oh, okay.
So it was a picture in the paper of them getting their police cars.
Right on.
And it was pretty neat. I love that
That's
picture.
pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you grew up around that industry. Did you ever want to do anything different or what?
No, I didn't. So my dad was the general manager of John Gemma, Chrysler, Plymouth. So the guy was from New Orleans. This is in the 60s, early 70s. And he had a dealership where the Hard Rock is.
Right.
And that was Plymouth and Triumph cars, like TR7s and stuff.
Yeah.
They sold those there. Then in Gulfport, he had a dealership. It was Chrysler Jaguar, right where the other casino is. What's the Island View? Right there. And my dad was general manager of both of them. And then they got the Honda franchise when Honda first came from Japan here. They got that in Biloxi. Terrible cars. They were like Yugos.
Yeah.
Right.
Throwaway cars.
The first couple of years, they were just, nobody wanted them, and gas prices were so low. Well, and then later, the gas crunch, 70s. But, so anyway, this guy, John Gemma, was like real flamboyant. But you should have seen the way he dressed compared to our dad. Holy moly.
It's wild.
Yeah. So anyway, he got in trouble with some gamblers or something and lost, and wound up selling the store. But he'd always promised my dad he would let my dad buy it. And of course, he didn't. So they sold the store to Peretti Pontiac out of New Orleans, Metairie. They came in and they got the Honda franchise, and it really wasn't doing very well. They sold to Bob Bird, and then Honda just takes off.
Right.
So my dad leaves there. goes to somewhere else, and then I'm 11 years old, 1976, and I'm begging him to take me to the fair in Pascagoula. You know, I want to go to the fair. And he took off one day, took me over there. We parked at Crown Dodge, where it is now.
Right.
And it was closed. So he's like, what's going on with this place, you know? So he called his people, you know, at Chrysler. They said, yeah, that place, they've tried to make it work. It was over at, I think originally it was at the bridge, and then Hurricane Camille wiped it out, and they rebuilt it there. It was only 5 or 6 years old. Well, it was, no, yeah, 69. And they had 5 owners in 4 years. Could not make the place work.
Wow.
So they asked him, they said, if you want to do it, you know, we've got this guy from New Orleans, Frank Spinata. He's already requested to own it. He has no dealership experience, but if you'll be his partner, we'll okay it. So they got with him and hocked the house for 50 grand. And that's it. Started the dealership.
Wow.
And then probably, I don't know, 2-3 years goes by, and then they part ways because New Orleans does not work in Jackson County.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't, it's just different. There's been a lot of dealerships that's come, like Petro came down here, and
Right.
it just doesn't work here. You have to be from here, and, you know, we do things different, for sure. So they parted ways, and then my dad wound up with it. And then I grew up in it. I was there every day after school, and holidays, and summers, and that's all I ever did. So from 11 on.
And so you knew that was pretty much what you were going to be doing.
It is. So I went to school at South Alabama, went to college, got a degree. I was going to do computer science because I love computers, but then I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to work at the dealership. So I went into marketing. So marketing was what I did. And when I got out, I immediately started working there full time, and then I computerized the entire dealership. They had no computers. Back then, you bought a car, everything was handwritten, you know, and then the contracts were all typed on a typewriter. It took hours.
Right.
Yeah, my mom bought a car from there. I distinctly remember that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it took forever, and I'm like, well, you know, and computers weren't really that abundant back then. You know, I guess I graduated in 87, so about 88 I started looking around for computer companies, and I found this one out of Birmingham, and we brought them in there and computerized everything, and we were able to type everything up in like 2 seconds, you know, like crazy.
Right.
It's what a time saver.
Right.
So accounting and parts and service and all that, it's just a big deal.
Made it go much quicker.
Yeah.
So, and how long did you end up doing that for him?
So from full-time 87 till 2021. So my parents in 1999 wanted to retire, and me and my 2 brothers worked there. One brother worked off and on, and the other one worked there full-time, but just selling cars, didn't want to be in management, and I did want to be in management. So my parents knew that, so they put me on with Chrysler. I was the dealer of record with them, so if anything happened to them, we could still keep the store.
Right.
And then in 99, my dad and mom wanted to retire, which they needed to. And so they came to me and said, look, you know, they wanted all 3 of us to do it, and that didn't work. You know, family dynamics.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Too much. So
Couldn't have 3 people own something like that.
So you had to decide who it was going to be.
I had to pick. They made me pick, and that was pretty rough.
Right.
A lot of
I'm sure.
But it worked out.
You got to pick one direction and go in that direction.
Yeah, you do. So, you know, they weren't very happy, but it is what it is. But anyway, did that, and then in 2021, after COVID and everything we've been through, bankruptcies and all this stuff, it's too much. It's just crazy. You couldn't get cars and parts, and everybody's mad at you. And just, you know, these people came from out of town and made us an offer we couldn't refuse. I'm like, it's time.
It's time.
And they've even told me, yeah, you sold at the right time.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, I know. That's why I was the business guy.
And it's the right time and it's the right decision. You don't even have to think about it.
You're right.
Yeah, that's
when you know.
So you had a lot of ups and downs being involved in it, you know.
Oh my gosh.
But you were successful, you know. I mean, you guys were there.
We made it. Nobody else had done
time.
it. Yeah, we were the oldest Chrysler dealership. Actually, there was only one more store that was older than us in the whole state, and actually they got bought out before we did. So we were actually the oldest store in the state.
Persistence.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so now you and you have this new venture. What is that?
The Pelican?
Yep.
Yep. Or my boat.
I love your boat. Golly, I love your boat.
Which one is more
Hole in
expensive?
the water. I don't know.
Both of them
Maybe.
involved break out another 1,000
Yeah.
or 10,000.
Right on.
Yeah, the Pelican is just amazing. Do you know what it is?
No, sir. Tell me about
Oh, okay. It's easier to show somebody. I love taking Google Maps and showing them.
Right.
It's like, you go, what? So you know where the Chandelier Islands are?
it. Yes, sir.
Okay. So we take people, the Pelican is a barge that Mark Stebley and Rod Fields started back almost 40 years ago. And they got a lease from the state of Louisiana to have this little spot of water at Chandelier Island, and they put a barge there.
Okay.
And they would take people out there, and it's guide fishing, but you basically stay on the barge overnight, and you get in a skiff and go fish, and come back and eat and do whatever you want to do, and go back and fish. And it's we do 3-day trips.
Like a floating camp.
It's a floating fishing camp, basically.
But not just a floating fishing camp. Because of its location, it is in some of the most resilient, most flourishing, waters that we have. And it all has to do with its location, right?
Yeah.
It is. I'll show you real fast. I don't think they might be able to see it, but at least you'll know. When you go on Google Maps, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so it's where it's located on Chandelier. Chandelier is about 30 miles long.
It is.
From north to south.
Yeah, the island chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about 30 miles from north to south long. And it's about that distance from Ocean Springs Harbor to Chandelier.
33 miles.
33 miles. So I've done day trips with just me and his brother-in-law, Richard Smith. And we would take an 18-foot flats boat and leave Ocean Springs and run all the way to the south point of that Chandelier Island.
Man.
You can't imagine the amount of sea life you see in 65 miles of traveling. It is unreal. Birds everywhere.
It's
all
one of the
different.
largest bird sanctuaries in
Yeah.
the world. Like Audubon.
Yeah, it really is. And the amount of schools of different species of fish are.
Here, go here, and then Chandelier.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty amazing, and to have that lease and to have that capabilities to house people out there that they can get up early in the morning and get on skiffs
So right
and go
here,
fish.
so that's the
Okay.
island.
Right on.
There's the Pelican. And when you zoom in, it's going to show you the entire houseboat here. It'll take a second.
Oh, very cool.
That's it.
Very cool.
Floating. And what's unique about it, the very front of it, it's got this 3 barges all lashed together, and then the very front barge, the middle barge, has this huge rope that goes down, and there's a big swivel. I think it's off some kind of tractor or crane swivel. It's in the water. Then there's 7 anchors out, big huge anchors out with like 100 foot of rope each, and the thing spins 360 constantly. So wherever the wind's blowing, it's always into the wind.
Okay, I got you.
And we've got all the skiffs in the back that you get in and go, but we've got like a galley, crew quarters, and then a bunkhouse for guests.
So how did you get involved in that? Did you just wake up one day and say, "Man, I'm gonna"?
Well, Mark has owned that thing for 30 plus years.
Right.
Rod got out of it and sold it to Mark. Mark's been doing that's what he's been doing for a living. And do you know who Mark Stebley is? So he's Walter
Yes.
Anderson's grandson.
Yes.
One of his grandsons. Great guy. And I used to go out there fish a lot. Like him and
We
all
all
of us.
did.
Richard had his bachelor party
Yeah.
there, I think, before he got married to Amy.
Yeah.
And it's just, the place is amazing. The water is crystal clear. It's just, it's heaven on earth. It really is.
You don't
It's
know
the
if
best
you're-
spot there is. You can get to the beach. You can do all this stuff right there. It's amazing. It just is. So Mark wanted to retire, and he's been trying to sell it for a little while, not really. And then Richard came to me one day and said, "Look, he wants to sell it, and he's
He's ready.
He's ready to sell.
Owner finance it, and I just need to get some partners together. And I'm like, I'm in.
Right.
I was still working at that point. I said, I don't care what it is, just let me know what it is, and I'll scrape up the money. And we got, I think it was around 10 or 11 people together to get it. And now we're down to 7 or 8 people that are still partners in it. So, but it's
an amazing place.
Yeah, it's like
you can
see Family Robinson Treehouse like living. We collect our own rainwater and it goes in there and all this stuff. So right now we're adding solar. Last week they put the panels up.
New roof.
Got to take the guy out Wednesday to finish wiring it and everything. So getting the generator will only kick on when we don't have light.
Right. And you just never know out there. You may see a 10-foot bull shark, and then you may see a school of 35 to 40 pound redfish of 100 or 20, 200 redfish just going crazy.
And so it's not frequented very often. There's not a whole lot of civilization around there.
There's other boats, so the mothership boats go out there, and they go out and they move around and they have skiffs and they unload and they do the same kind of trips we do, but they're on a moving vessel. Think about us as, and it takes them all night to get there because they're very slow. So you're out there within an hour and a half with us. So you're fishing immediately.
Right.
You've got another probably. Think about it, probably another full day of fishing with us than you do with the other people because they're
already there.
It's 5-6 hours for them to get out there. So it's a little.
You've already made your first trip and you're back at the at the barge drinking your first frosty beverage.
Exactly.
And taking a nap after that.
You've already posted on
they even get
Instagram,
there.
man. What are you talking about?
And the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen in my life. And the stars.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
You're so far away from any light
No light
pollution.
It is amazing, the stars.
I've seen that in 2 places. I've seen it out front and I've seen it out in the desert,
Oh, yeah.
over in Iraq. And there's something to be said about that sky at night that other people just don't understand until they've seen it. So.
It is hard to, I see stars. Yeah. No.
Now, when I'm
You haven't
counting
seen this many.
satellites,
Yeah.
we're doing something.
Yeah, we see some weird stuff out there too sometimes. Talking about wildlife, last when was that? Fall. I was coming in my little boat, and I saw something, a bunch of birds going crazy and fish and stuff, and I saw some fins. I'm like, and they were stationary. I was like, that's dolphin, isn't it? Nope. It was the largest manta ray. It was large. It was as large as my boat.
Oh yeah, I've seen some big ones.
And he was stationary and had his mouth wide open, and then the minnows he was just
scooping them in.
Yeah, he was just staying in one spot, and I got all the way up to him, got some video. I mean, where else you gonna see that?
Right. I got when I was younger, my brother had an old Boston whaler, 15-footers with the little wood bench in them.
We had a 17.
And we were running out there, close to out there. We were on the buoys between Horn and there, or shipping there. And
that's where he was.
I saw one of the largest sea turtles of my life.
Oh.
It was bigger than our boat. It was huge.
That's a huge sea turtle.
At first, I thought it was like, you see all kind of trash and debris from big ships out there and containers and all kind of stuff floating. And I was like, what is that? And when we got close to it, I was like, that turtle is as big as this 15-foot Boston whaler.
Big old leatherback.
Yeah, it really was unreal. But you got to think about it. 200 years ago, how many people saw larger animals, megafauna all over the world and all the oceans than we see now?
Yeah.
There was less people hunting and fishing, all that, And so those things get huge.
Yeah.
It's like a big tuna, giant tuna, or giant marlin, the over 1,000-pound marlin, I mean, you see those things, it really puts in perspective how big those animals are, But the Pelican is
it's just a really cool place.
It's really cool.
It's amazing.
Well, I imagine as far as retirement jobs go, that can't be a bad one, right?
Well, I'm just one of the partners, and then I'm doing all the books and taking care of all the money and stuff. And Richard's, running the trips.
But you also went through sea school, right?
I did. Got my master's license just recently.
Yep.
So
we share that bond. I'm a boat captain as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
I always wanted to do that. Never had time to do it because I was working.
Right. In fact, Bobby and I had a couple of days fishing at Ship Island years ago that would just blow your mind. Just me and him, or maybe me and him and one other person. and no one else around, and just redfish as big as this table, and we'd feed them on fly, and just
Coming in on the waves, remember that?
Yeah.
The wave would come in, there's 50 redfish just riding the wave, and it was like,
Wow.
as big as this table, and
Yeah.
crystal clear 2-foot water,
yeah.
and you just pick which one you wanted to battle.
They were silver too, I think.
Yeah.
It was like November.
Yeah, well, the thing is with, and most people don't realize this, if you catch a redfish in the bayou, they tend to have more of a brown, gold, kind of copper color. But when you catch them out at the barrier islands, they're kind of sun bleached from being in shallow, clear water all the time, that they're kind of more silver and white than they are that pumpkin color, And it really, like in Destin, I've seen them before in the surf with polarized glasses that would be really hard to pick out.
They blended in.
Because they blended in so well if I didn't know what I was trained, my trained eyes were looking for.
I've caught one. We went fishing in Escataba, the big bridge, Moss
Yeah.
Point. We were fishing there one day, and where those rocks are, where all the aggregate stuff is, caught a redfish there, and he was in the river had come in all muddy and stuff, and it was like kind of silvery, kind of regular fish. Went back toward the Pogey place where it was super clear water, like the Escataba River water. Caught one on one of those boats. It was the most brightest gold, like a big goldfish.
It looks like a giant koi fish.
A couple hundred yards away from where we got the other one.
Yeah.
I've actually been scuba diving right there underneath that
Really?
bridge, looking for stolen cars and murder weapons and stuff
Oh,
like
my
that.
gosh.
And you'd be surprised how clear it can get there. And
Yeah.
I've seen the redfish in the water there.
Oh, it
It's
is
like, wow, I thought
It's
I was-
deep, very deep. It's like 60 feet deep there.
It
Yeah.
is.
But and one of the reasons why the Pelican has always been so successful, not just because of its location and just the fishery in general in itself, but it's like anything that you really find in life that you enjoy doing. When you are out in clear water and you see a fish that's 30 or 40 pounds, that the average fisherman would give pretty much anything to catch in dirty water on a dead mullet, and reel it in and be shocked. You're seeing these fish in their natural predatory habitats, and you're presenting them with baits and watching them change their natural behavior to go after something that you may have tied yourself at your house using a deer that you killed. I do that. I take the deer tail, the buck tail, and I let it cure out, and then I take the hair off of that and I tie that into my flies. And you can dye that hair different colors to mimic different color bait fish. But to watch a big giant redfish like eating crabs or filler crabs off of a bank, and you throw this fly that you tied on a rainy winter day at your house, and see them change their pattern of behavior from eating a crab off the bank to seeing your bait in the water and chase it down, and when they open that mouth and they suck that thing in and you see the water flush the sand through their gills and you set that hook, it is the most addicting thing you've ever done in your life.
Yeah. Fly fishing.
For us down here in the South, in South Mississippi, that is crack cocaine for outdoorsmen. Seriously.
So the Pelican really has not catered to fly fishermen in the past. Mainly just people want to go out there and catch their limit of fish and meat hauls.
Right.
And those have really, since Richard's taken over, because Richard's a world-class fly fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want to catch the biggest redfish you've ever caught in your life, you go with Richard. He will find you the biggest fish you've ever seen.
If he can't find a redfish, he's going to get you spooled on a giant jack.
Yeah. I mean, he's a pro.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now, you might not catch it, but he'll show it to you. Yeah. That's the other thing.
His tactics are
Well, that's
different.
why they
You
call
can't
it.
cast. Yeah, it's called,
It's called fishing, not catching.
That's right.
That's right.
But he'll show you the fish. But so now because of him and all the things we've been doing, it's probably 20-30% now fly fishermen, and it's increasing even more because we brought some really famous people out there that have some big shops and stuff, and they're like putting the word out. So now we've got this year booked already a bunch of Florida people, Georgia, that have fly fishing shops. So they go all over the country and take the groups of people that they know,
Right.
whatever, different places, and they're doing us this year. So it's really taken off. And fly fishermen, I like them too because they really don't keep their fish. Not much of it.
Conservationist.
So trout fishing's gone down out there. Redfish are plentiful.
Right.
Trout are very hard to find. They're there, but they're so hard to find, and they're not like they used to be. They used to be everywhere. It doesn't matter where you just throw something, you're going to catch a trout. It's really, the islands have changed so much, and the habitat. So I'm glad that Louisiana did change their regulations. So,
Right.
They make.
Well, it's not just that when they opened the spillway and
that ruined everything.
that ruined.
Oysters,
Yeah. I mean,
I know.
there's a lot of different things that people don't realize that the people downstream always seem to suffer for those things. And that was one of the worst things ever. That and the oil spill in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
But to show how resilient things are, it's come back really well.
It has, and I was talking to somebody the other day. We've got species here now that we did not have a while back. I mean, there's species like they're catching mangrove snapper like in Pascagoula.
Yeah, I was about to say you can catch them at Pascagoula.
Yeah, I mean they're catching all these species. Look downs are out here now.
Yeah.
I never saw that when I was, and like when I was a kid, there were no pelicans in Mississippi. The only pelican I saw, we had to go to Florida to see it.
And I talked to an old timer about this about a year ago, and
the tarpon are back.
The tarpon are back as well. I've seen plenty of tarpon in the East Marsh. Haven't caught one, but I've seen quite a few of them. Rolling and catching mullet. But the old guy I talked to one day, he said, when you think about it, whenever there's an issue with the water, it doesn't just affect the creatures of the water. It affects the birds. It affects everything around, all the nature around water, including the plant life, the trees, everything. He said, so when you go somewhere and you see a lot of birds and you see a lot of bait fish, that means you're in a healthy, enriched environment. And a lot of that has to do with some of these farmers upstream from us have not been using as many pesticides and
the DDT. I think
DDT
and with the pelicans while they left.
Yeah, well, that too. But a pelican, I do bird photography, as you both know, and most of its catch isn't just one fish. They dive into schools of small bait fish. So if there's not a lot of small bait fish around, those pelicans aren't going to be around. And because of all the pogies and the small bait fish and the minnows and stuff, it starts from the smaller level and works its way up.
And shrimping.
Shrimping
changed in Biloxi quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
The population moved in. They kept more bycatch than anyone else.
Right.
I don't know if that had an effect or not. You would think it might have some.
Well, you do, but like I said, if you don't have the smallest level of the ecosystem being plentiful, then you're not going to have it through the rest of the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
But yeah, we live in a really beautiful place, and the more you take time to realize that and enjoy that, the better your life becomes. And I think that's why the Pelican's such a successful place, because it really showcases all of that.
Yeah.
But it also shows, like you said about the spillway and stuff, how fragile it is.
Spillway and hurricanes have really hurt that place too.
Oh yeah.
Messed up the islands quite a bit.
It just changes it so much.
All the grass and everything.
So I've looked at how the islands have changed just through Facebook and some of the groups that I belong to. Like, they have nostalgic pictures of Ship Island and Horn Island and all that kind of stuff, and all the different things that's been there, like the freshwater springs and all.
On the Isle of Capri.
Yeah, the Capri was going,
Yeah.
But remember they had the artesian wells when I was a kid. They had those pipes in the middle of Horn Island.
Yeah.
Just fresh water spraying out of it.
Yeah, they've had everything from military installations out there
a
to
lot of wartime
railroads.
stuff.
Yeah.
They had different elevated structures on pylons out there too at different times.
Yeah, a little airstrip too.
Yeah.
Was there a casino there at some point?
That was
Isle of Capri.
Isle of Capri.
Yeah.
So between the two islands was this island, and they built a casino there. And I don't know, the story was everybody kept picking all the foliage off of it, and next thing you know, it just sank.
20s, 30s. That kind of stuff.
Storms, hurricanes, and things eroded it. And now, when you fish in between the two islands, closer to Ship Island, on a moving tide, getting closer to lower, you can be in like 3 or 4 foot water at different times. A mile off of East Ship.
Oh yeah.
And you can just drift over that whole sandbank, and there's so many fish there.
Ships changed a lot too lately.
Yeah, since they dredged.
It is extended so far out. You've got to go way out
And around.
I mean, it gets down 2 feet deep.
Yeah, because it kind of shuffles the sand. See, after Camille came through and the Camille Cut was there, when we'd have strong southeast winds, it would shift that sand around to that. And then that sandbar would kind of get bigger, but there was still a cut you could go through. But when they dredged and filled it all in, it's kind of forced that sand from the east side of the island towards the west side. But by doing that, it's just pushing it out into the surf, so that the sand now is not the way it used to be. It would come from deeper water onto the island, and now there's extended sand out away from the island going south, and so
It's almost like the island's going to be growing that way.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I know why they did it. It protects our coastline, 11 and a half miles inland from it, but it really changed the dynamic, because when I was talking earlier about Bobby and I fishing out there, the best times I've ever fished fly fish in my life for years on years on years.
Right there at Camille Cut?
Right there at Camille Cut. I'd pull my boat on the north side of the island. We'd walk across the west tip of the east part of Ship, because it was in 2 sections. And the way that peninsula kind of dipped out and went around, those redfish would feed in out of that deeper water and come in on a tide change and catch all the crabs going across that sandbar. And I'm telling you, hundreds and hundreds of fish in a school at a time that would just appear out of that dark water into a 1.5 2 foot of crystal clear water, and you could just pick which one you wanted to catch.
Pompano too.
And a pompano too. And I actually caught a pompano, like you were saying earlier.
I remember that.
I was literally just wade fishing, walking in about waist deep water and trying to get to another little peninsula. And as I was walking, my fly was in the water behind me. And a pompano about that big just came up and smoked my fly. I wasn't even trying to catch it, because they're real finicky fish. But they're one of the most delicious fish you could catch. And pompano are real prevalent on beaches like in Pensacola and Destin and things like that. Anywhere you can get sand fleas from the sand and use that as bait. So I was pretty shocked, and I did that once before with Steve White, and he was like, "I can't believe you caught a pompano," But it just once again shows the resiliency of our waters here, for sure.
We live in a great place. We do.
And we're the Learned Alpha podcast, and we often talk about who taught us what part of manhood, and this and that. And like I said before, my dad wasn't a big fisherman, but my brother was, and we grew up on Fort Bayou. So it's funny when I fish with my wife and daughter, we'll go into a bayou, and it might not even be in Mississippi. It'll just be any bayou. And I go into a bayou and I scope it out and check the tide and see what the banks look like and where the water's flowing at. And we'll pull up into a...
You learned that from somebody.
Yeah, my brother.
That's right.
And it was my backyard growing up. And that's how I learned. But it just goes to show that when you learn something from older men in your life, it's not always going to be your dad or your uncle.
It could be anybody.
It could be anybody.
Sure.
And we learn those things from different guys in our life. Who is somebody that you learned that kind of thing from that wasn't your dad or your brothers?
Really not many uncles. My uncle taught me how to fly fish, freshwater fly fish. Matter of fact, my first fly pole, I got S&H green stamps. You know what that is?
Yeah.
From Winn-Dixie.
Wow.
My mom, would save them, and I got a bunch of them, and they had like a little store there too, next door. You go in there, and I got a fly rod and a reel. That's my first fly rod. So my uncle Tim Summerall, we had a fishing camp at Potty Call, and we would go up there every weekend, and he taught me how to fly fish, and it's, never forget that.
So your first fish on fly was a bass?
Probably a brim.
A brim? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Little poppers.
Yeah, oh yeah. That looks like little dragonflies on top of the water.
Yeah, got the rubber legs.
Yeah, those are fun. I love catching bass on fly.
Bass and coggle eye, yeah.
Yeah, what's called a gurgler, Derek. So it's like a piece of foam that's folded over itself. So it kind of mimics like a frog, When
Right.
you with a fly line, when you present the fly in the water, you don't just reel it really fast. You kind of strip the line so that it kind of mimics a frog or whatever you're trying to mimic on top of the water. And when you see a bass, about a 3-pound, 4-pound bass, which isn't very big, but when you're fly fishing and that thing comes out of the water like Shamu and it hits that gurgler and you hear that pop.
Learn how to roll that line under the branch.
Yeah.
I've done a good bit of fly fishing in freshwater, mostly in Little Black Creek and in Red Creek.
Little Black Creek's great. In Red Creek, I've loved floating Red Creek.
Oh yeah.
That was really fun. But I used to get this little lure from Kmart. It was called a Frugal Frog, and it just had a cork end on it, a little bird-shaped mouth, and it was painted up like a frog with some legs on it. And it would make a little gurgling sound when you'd pop it. But I'd just throw it out there, and I'd wait for those ripples to get about 12 to 18 inches away, pop it again, strip it a little bit more, and like you said, having a 2-pound fish jump up out of the water.
Yeah.
At Red Creek, I mean, that's...
Yeah.
My mom was from Wiggins, and my cousins would take me fishing. They put the skiff over somewhere and have another truck downstream,
Yeah.
We'd float and have to pick it up and get over the,
Shallows, yeah.
shallow stuff or trees, that are falling down. And that the depth that change that thing has is like, 20 feet?
Yeah. It's pretty tremendous, especially, well, this time of year, it's all the rain we've had north of us, the Pascagoula River, Black Creek, Red
Probably
Creek,
pretty good.
they all flood pretty good.
Yep.
Which changes the sand and the sandbars and all the trees, the
It's
dead
always
trees.
different.
It's always different.
That's what's so neat about it. But yeah, they love doing that, and I did too.
So you grew up fishing. Did you grow up have anything else that you were passionate about? Besides work and fishing?
Yeah.
Your kids, right?
Yeah, well, of course. Well, growing up, music, so my brothers were both musicians, and I was probably, I was in high school, 9th, 10th grade. I think my brother went to California and left me all his music equipment, guitar, stereo, everything. I was like, oh my God. And I found out I wanted to learn how to play the bass. So I got a bass from another cousin that had hawked it at the thing and learned how to play the bass. And Andy had a band at that time, Shiloh. And they played top 40 stuff all over the coast. Cheyenne Social Club and Airman's Club at the Keesler and all that stuff. And I would go with them and do the light show for them, and help the sound guy do stuff. And then finally I learned how to play the bass, and I learned about 20 songs, and I'd get up and play the bass, and the bass player would go out there and try to fix stuff that the sound guy wasn't doing right or whatever. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. I wish I would have kept that up. But my son picked it up, and he is phenomenal.
He is.
Awesome.
He is a baby Bobby Dalgo. He is a awesome human being.
Yes. I got 3 great kids.
Yeah, he definitely. When you look at I look at my kids sometimes, and they say things or do things, and I'm like, God, that's me, or that's my wife, He definitely has. He carries himself like you do.
Yeah,
he sure does, man.
He's doing good. He's at working at Northrop Grumman in Moss Point.
Awesome.
Engineer. So,
but he can slap the bass.
He can. He's amazing. I mean, he was in 3 bands. Now he's just in 2.
Yeah, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I can't serve 3 masters, really, and it gets tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being a dad for you is one of those markers in life that, I'm sure you look back on now that they're older, and you're like, okay, at least I got that right for sure, right?
Yeah. Very proud of everything they've done and accomplished. So, they're in their, 35, 33, and 25. So they're all doing well.
During the time that you were running the business and taking care of all the things, I'm sure you were very busy. Did you ever have trouble finding balance between home and work?
Of course. Yeah. And it's hard to leave work at work. It's tough. And then at some point you just gotta go like, it's gonna, because I kind of micromanage things, because in there I knew how to do every department. So if the service manager quit, well, I'm in service till I hire somebody else,
right?
Or parts, or sales, or whatever. It's just like it was a curse, but it was also a good thing that I knew how to do what they do, and I could also train them. And here's how I want it done. And we had very little turnover, so we, people like working for us. We always try to do the right thing. That's the main thing. If you tell them, look, if you screw up a mechanic, if you mess up something, if you break something, come tell me. I'm not going to make you pay for it.
Right.
Unless it was on purpose, but it wasn't. I know you broke it. It didn't, but don't try to hide it. That's the worst thing you can do.
Right.
So everybody knew that, and they knew they could come to us, and, we're not going to go crazy.
Not going to freak out on them.
No. I mean, it's too hard to get an employee to begin with. That's really one of the reasons I was glad to sell it, because you cannot find anybody interested in being a technician on a car anymore. It's impossible. And the factory has made it so if you don't have that person trained, and they've been to every school there is, which would take 3 years to do, you're not allowed to work on the car.
So do you think that's a product? I've seen a lot of stuff online lately. Do you think that's a product of people of my generation and a little bit younger being told that you're not going to amount to anything if you don't go to college, and working with your hands is not cool? Do you think that's a product of that? Or
Could be. I mean, people, you can, plumbers and electricians, they make great money. Like working on my boat, I've learned how to work on a diesel motor.
Right.
Never thought I would. I mean, I've torqued head bolts and fixed my generator, but I had to get help from this guy that came over, young guy, helped me with the generator. And he's like, phone, just completely ringing off the hook. And I was like, if you just learn how to do that, you're set.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just needed that people just don't even think about. And yeah, we need people. I wish we had more vocational stuff. Like the high school, Ocean Springs, I donated some stuff there, and I went there and did this thing for them to be ASE certified. And they have a beautiful shop.
Oh, yeah, it's nice.
The new high school is amazing. But they had nothing to work on, like one car. I think we donated them a car. And then as soon as those kids leave there, they want nothing to do with automobiles. They're going to go work at Chevron.
Right.
Or Ingalls, which is great. We need that too. But we need people that know, the art of fixing things.
Well, yeah. Well, it's just labor jobs in general. Like I tended your whole boat, and there's not many places around. There's more places now in the last 5 or 6 years, but the person I learned from in the business that I worked through, he's been doing it since the 70s.
Joe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he kind of could see that back then, because I used to clean windows for him when I was in high school, just as a part-time job, and I also worked at the old Salvetti Brothers downtown washing dishes, and I was the chicken parm guy, But it's just one of those things where it's a trait that I learned then, just like when I went through 3 years of building and trades in high school when I went through Ocean Springs, that I've used my entire life.
Yes.
And you calculate the amount of money I've saved myself from the experience and the knowledge of having to do those things myself. I would go as far as say $250,000 in my life of what I've saved in monetary value of doing it myself. I think some of it is like people are just afraid that they might mess something up by, doing a trade of some kind and not knowing, but that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Well,
back when we were younger, we had Grandpa.
Right.
Who told you how to do stuff. Now you got YouTube.
Yeah.
Man, I wished I'd had some YouTube back.
I know.
For real.
It has come in.
I like hearing Mike Rowe talk about a lot of these things, and he does a real good job of taking politics out of it and taking politics, religion, and socioeconomic situations out of it. And he just says, "Look, we got to get back to accepting the fact that not everybody's made for college.
Yeah,
some people are made to work with their hands, and they are exceptionally intelligent doing that. And it's okay to be like that.
Some of the most intelligent people I've ever met never went to college.
Right.
I mean, extremely intelligent. You don't have to go to college.
Well, you have
college
to.
And it's not a right. It's, to go to college.
It's for some people, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to know when you do a trade, you don't just know exactly what you're actually doing at that moment in time. You have to understand the reasoning behind it and all these other things. And there's a vast majority of young guys out there who don't do well in a classroom listen to somebody wow for 2 hours straight. They watch you do it 1 or 2 times, and then they can duplicate that. And once they've done that 20 or 40 or 100 times, then they perfect it themselves.
There's probably 80, I remember in college, there's probably 80% of what I did and went through that I'll never use.
Right. And so you ask
There's
yourself,
20% that was like, I use every day.
Right.
I mean, I did learn some things that were specific to what I needed and still today use. So it depends. And most people, when they go to college, they don't know what they want to do. Like my kids knew what they wanted to, one wanted to be in nursing. She got her PhD and she's a nurse practitioner. Chase went to engineering school, so he's a mechanical engineer. And then my little one wanted to be a teacher and became a teacher. And then says, I don't want to be a teacher. After 3 years, so now she's in nursing school. She'll graduate this year with an RN degree. But she loves it. So
awesome.
That's the thing. If you know, but a lot of people just don't know.
See, I was blessed from the very beginning. I knew I wanted to be a cop. I didn't want to do anything else. As a matter of fact, from like 18 to 21, I was a firefighter. I was an EMT. I did all these things, and I enjoyed them, but I was killing time till I could be 21. And I've only recently understood how big of a blessing that was to know what you want to do.
Huge blessing to know up front. But so many kids don't. My nieces and nephews, and they're like, what do you want to do? Because they're about to go to college. No, I don't know. I feel sorry for them.
Well, I think part of that, man, is the distraction, right? From social media, from the news, from just...
There's too much.
They're taking in too much of everybody else's opinion of the world.
Taken from a fire hose.
There you go. And not their own.
Right.
Or they don't have someone that's there saying, hey, look, these are kind of your options, and you really need to start thinking about one or the other.
And what's really neat is whenever they meet somebody I know and that's doing something really neat, and they go, oh, I didn't know I could do that. It opens their eyes up. Maybe I'll go to school and do that, learn how to do that, or whatever. Or even made them not go to school. Just, I want to do that because it's interesting. But they don't know anything about it. They're not, I don't know if there's not enough experiences for people, real experiences for people, and people with experience.
Not enough chances to fail.
Yeah.
Well, you have to take a chance in life on something, or you won't accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
What in your life do you think is one of the biggest accomplishments, and how has that affected you?
Having a great family, probably that. And then with Chrysler, we were highly recognized with them. We always were won awards and different things, that they would have contests or they would do this and that. I always loved advertising.
You guys used to have some great
commercials,
great reggae commercials, man.
And I won awards. So Chrysler had this thing came out. They had the lifetime warranty on the cars. They're giving away for free on all the cars. And they had an ad campaign that they were like, whatever dealership in the whole country comes up with the best ad campaign, we'll give you like $60,000 as the grand prize. So I was at that meeting, and I actually wrote the entire script to what I wanted to do at the meeting on a notepad at the hotel. So I got back, called WLX, made the ad, we won.
Wow.
Nice.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, and these other dealers, they had spent, I don't know how much money. They had like CG graphics and and we went to Vegas. I was looking at these ads, oh my God, those are awesome. But they picked ours because it was funny and
original.
Yeah, they were lacking that heart and that authenticity.
Yeah. It was about a guy marrying a car because it was Lifetime.
Right.
He married his truck.
I can see that.
Yeah. But that was stuff like that is really neat. But when it comes down to your family, it's kind of hard to beat that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's really refreshing to have you here because we've had a lot of A-type personalities before firefighters, police officers,
yeah.
that kind of thing. And it's interesting to hear your perspective on things. Looking back, you've grew up in a business, you took over a business, you successfully ran it, did good. Then you retired from that business and then started something completely different out of that wheelhouse. What piece of advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out like that?
Talk to as many people as you can. I mean, you can't have enough contacts with people. You just will learn so much from other people. You just can't, I'm just going to do it on my own.
Right.
You know, you need to get advice from people, but in the same industry, you know, make contacts with people who are doing the same thing. Hey, what are you doing? You know, and bounce things off each other.
Be smart enough to listen?
Yes, you got to listen.
You got to be a sponge.
Nobody's smart enough to do everything themselves.
Right.
They've either seen it done somewhere else or heard it or whatever. You know, it's very rare that you know, unless you're like an Elon Musk or something, you know.
Which that guy, props to him. He is, you know, it's funny. You look at some of his older footage from, let's say, 10, 12, maybe even 13 years ago, and you see how kind of young and timid he was. But even at that time, he still knew his goals and what he wanted to do and why he wanted to do them. You know, it doesn't matter what you do in life, but you have to be sure about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right.
You know, and he's definitely one of those. And
you just keep your head down and keep doing it.
Keep grinding.
Because, I mean, we had so many, you know, in the business, we had, you know, the bankruptcies in 2009.
Right.
Terrible. We didn't know, they were taking away dealerships like left and right. Then we had the oil spill. Then we had, and then Katrina. Katrina was just right before that. You know, Katrina was a blessing and a curse. So Katrina came, and everybody needed a new car. So for 2 months, we sold the most cars we ever sold ever.
Right.
And then for 3 years, we didn't sell hardly anything because everybody had a new car.
That's right.
So
nothing's breaking down.
Well, everybody had a new car, and the economy tanked pretty much.
Yeah, then the economy tanked, then the oil spill. I was like, oh, what are we, you know? And then Chrysler's calling, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm just trying
doing the best we can.
I'm surviving.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
But you stayed persistent.
We did.
And you ended up selling a successful business
We
that
did.
your dad ran and that you ran.
And we were loyal. So our employees, we never got rid of anybody, even though we might have had too many employees. I know how hard it is to get a good employee, so I'm not going to let them go.
Right.
I'd pay them, keep on paying them, even though I'm not making money. I want to keep them because I know it's going to turn around. It's going to take a while.
Well, they're going to work harder for you, too, if you're taking care of
They
them.
do. They do. We loved our employees. They were great.
I think that's missing from our country, too. Not enough people recognize that and see that. I think they see employees kind of as the dispensable and replaceable. And
that's what I see. I see people just firing left and right. Just get rid of them. Well, who's going to replace them? It's going to be somebody that's, you know, doesn't know what they're doing. These people already have the experience. Keep them. Way easier to keep somebody than to start from scratch.
It's an investment.
yeah,
Very much.
Investment in everybody's future, yours and theirs.
And
a
when
lot of business owners don't know that.
And when you do that, you know, they put more pride and more effort into what they're actually doing.
They're protecting your investment.
Right, because they know at the end of the day you're protecting their paycheck, so they're returning that favor
yeah.
to you.
Our employees always was looking out for us, and that makes you feel really good.
Yeah. So, dad, husband, brother, son, all those things. What is the best advice you would give a young man who's in his 20s right now and facing the realities of the world we live in today, of how to be successful and to keep that persistent that you talked about moving forward in their life?
God, that's a hard one. Well, be persistent. That's it. You know, don't give up. If there's something you want to do, you got to just keep doing what you got to grind it out until you get it done, until you get to where you want to be. Find other people to help you. You know, and kind of stay with people who are doing or trying to do that. You know what I mean? And when you get distracted from people that are lazy, don't want to work, you know, those aren't people you want to hang around with.
No.
You want people who are focused, have a job, want to do better. That's the ones you need to hang around, because that's what I see. I see a lot of just kids that are just I don't know how they're making it.
They're just there.
They're just there. They're just doing whatever job they can do just to go home and play video games. or whatever they're going to do, they need to be mindful of what the end goal is. What kind of life do you want to have? Do you want to have kids and marriage and a house and all that stuff? Well, you got to work for it. Nobody's going to give it to you.
And it doesn't come without that sweat equity either.
Yeah. And if whoever you're working for sees that, that's going to go a long way. You will move up. You might own that company one day.
Yeah, you never know.
It happens.
Well, I really, 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 really appreciate the conversation this afternoon, Bobby Dalgo. A lot of insight. Like Darius said, we have a lot of friends, he and I mutually, that are in law enforcement and firefighters and things like that. And your perspective is just as important as everybody else's.
Well, sure.
And
everybody can bring something.
Everybody can bring something to the table. We talk about that all the time. And we always learn something from everybody that comes on. And I think it's a good thing to share that conversation. Because we don't talk to each other enough anymore. Just as people, we don't. Right. We may chastise other people on social media, but we don't talk to each other.
No.
And it's important.
No.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Good to meet you too.
So thank you for coming. You guys, please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much.